today to talk to you about having a sibling with a disability. So I was just 18 months old when my brother Sean was born, and we would find out very quickly that he was born with Down syndrome. I actually loved growing up with a brother that had Down syndrome. I felt that it really brought our family closer together. We had a lot of fun together. It made us really close. Like, I got to have a brother that was really like a best friend to me. And I don't know, I just really wouldn't change it for anything. But I know that a lot of people's experiences are not as good as mine. There can be a myriad of different experiences held by people that have brothers and sisters with disabilities, and it's okay that everybody has a different experience. Lucky for us, I would say that Sean didn't have a lot of medical issues and he didn't have a lot of behavioral issues, and so that obviously had a huge impact on our experience, because if your sibling has a lot of medical and behavioral challenges, I know that can be really, really hard. So after I graduated from high school, I really didn't know what I wanted to do, so I took a year off to really think about what would be the next steps and what I wanted to pursue as a career. It just kind of felt like a perfect fit that I would go into the disability field, because this really was my lived experience and I had a ton of experience in the disability world. So I decided to go and get my diploma and then my degree in community rehab and disability studies, and I have been working in the field ever since. I would say that the hardest part of growing up with a brother with a disability was probably when people would bully him. I can remember being in elementary school and sitting on the hill in the playground, and I could see people laughing at him and pointing at him for the way that he was running through the field. And I just remember being really upset and crying and just wishing that people could see what I saw in him. And that was just really hard to be witness to when people would treat him that way. And I guess the other part was that sometimes people would make him do things that he would get in trouble for at school because they thought it was funny, and that was just really hard as a big sister who's like really overprotective of him and doesn't want to see him getting into trouble for those things. It's really hard to say what the best part of having a sibling with a disability is in my experience. I really liked so many parts of being a sibling. I don't know, I just love him so much, and I feel like I just have a best friend for life, and the love that he brings and how he gets so excited to see everybody and how he challenges us, makes us grow, the community that he's introduced us to, the fun that we have together, how excited he is for his birthdays. Like, it just really is a really great experience for us. So Sean is actually 30 now. We just celebrated his 30th birthday in September with a big party. If you know Sean, then you know how important birthdays are to him. Every year he starts planning it months and months in advance, what party he's having, where he's having it, who's coming to it, are we going on a vacation, what are we having to eat. It's just a really big deal to him, which is a lot of fun for all of us. And so he moved out right after high school. He's lived with a couple of different roommates through the years. He's lived with these past roommates for quite a few years now. He lives with 2 supportive roommates, and he has 2 part-time jobs. He volunteers, he's part of activities and sports in the community. He has tons of friends that he hangs out with, and I often joke that really he, I think, has a lot more fun than most of us get to have in life. Especially for a 30-year-old, he's always doing cool things, and so yeah, he's pretty independent, but he obviously still needs some support with day-to-day living things like cooking or just making sure everything's set up for his day or taking medication. But really, he just is a lot like most 30-year-olds and wants the same things: to be as independent as possible, to have a job, he wants to date and get married. And those are a lot of goals that most of us have. My advice for sibs, I've got a few pieces of advice. So first of all, I think that if you are a young sib or even older and you really feel like you're struggling being a sib to someone with a disability, it's really, really important that you don't stay quiet about it and that you talk to someone about it. So of course, parents would be a great idea. So if you are having challenges in the home, I think it's great that you address them with your parents so that they know really how you feel or what's going on. And if there needs to be external help, then you can get that. So that could look like counseling for a lot of kids. I didn't actually realize how important counseling was, to talk about the experiences that you have as a sibling to someone with a disability. And so I would highly recommend it for pretty much all siblings to have somebody that they could talk to, because of course a parent is such a wonderful help, but at the same time they might not know how best to deal with it because they are looking out for all of their kids equally. And so I think it's really cool if somebody can have someone that's just their support that they get to talk about what their experiences are. Another really important thing is that siblings make time for themselves. So oftentimes what happens is we feel that we have to make our life about our sibling, and the family has to like kind of work in a way that makes life easy for the whole family because of the sib with a disability. So that could be because of medical concerns or because of behavioral concerns, that we do these things because this makes our life easier. So it's really, really important that sibs make time for themselves, do activities that they like to do fun things, hang out with their own friends, and don't just make their life all about their disability. So then this leads into another thing, which would be that you allow yourself to have your own goals and dreams that are separate from your sibling, because your sibling wants to have their own life too and have goals and dreams of their own, and so you should also follow suit and have your own goals and dreams, and don't let those be dampered by having a sibling with a disability, because really you can be super successful in your life even if you have a sibling with a disability, because in many places there are so many different supports that can make sure that your sibling does well, and it doesn't have to fall on your shoulders 100% of the time. So the last thing that I would recommend is to network. And so there are so many different ways that you can do this. For example, there are many Facebook groups online, so you can go on and just type in siblings and then your area, or sibling support groups or sibling networks. You can Google them. I think that lots and lots of places have them. I was lucky enough to actually be certified in sib shops, and I traveled to Denver to do that, and they had this really amazing sibling support group where they actually got together in person and hung out and talked about issues, and they kind of try to come together and do that quite often so that they know they have support. And then of course they have like a Facebook group together so that they can talk to each other as well. So I think that's so important, that really with anything in life, if you can find that group of people that are going through the same thing as you. So I would recommend Facebook groups for sure, but then also because I am trained in sib shops, I would absolutely recommend sib shops for younger sibs. So not all communities are going to have sib shops, but me being in Calgary, we do have sib shops here. And so what sib shops are is they are workshops that are based really around fun and activities for younger sibs. So typically I would say the age ranges are 8 to 13 years old, and every model is kind of different, but for us, as an example, we come together about once a month to just really have a lot of fun, and then talk a little bit too about what it's like to have a sibling with a disability. So depending on where you're at, I would highly recommend that you research that and see if there are any sib shops in your area. And then of course, really lastly, is just seeing if you can find any other resources. So there are tons and tons of books about sibling issues. This is just one of them by Don Meyer, who was actually the founder of Sib Shops. So it's the Sibling Survival Guide. So this is more for teens and adults. Just kind of walks you through what it's like having a sibling, and then different areas of concern, and then tips about that. Of course, there are books for younger ones as well. Another really great resource for me specifically because of the Down syndrome community is Dr. Brian Scottco. So Dr. Brian Scottco actually has a sister with Down syndrome, and so he has now become actually a medical doctor, but then he also does speaking engagements about what it's like to be a sib. And I think one of his workshops is actually available on his website for free, and it is advice to parents about their children that are siblings to somebody with Down syndrome. So I would say that it's really more important than a lot of parents do realize because of course there's this sibling that needs a lot of attention, this child that needs a lot of attention and care, but then sometimes what can happen is the other siblings need attention and support as well. And so if you go on the internet, there is so much great support out there, and I think it just takes some time to kind of filter through it and see what might be the best fit for you. So having a brother or a sister with a disability can impact somebody in so many different ways. So some people might feel guilty that they are okay and that their sibling has a disability. Some people might have a lot of anger and resentment because they just want a normal sibling and they don't want to have that complicated relationship of having a sibling with a disability. One of the things I hear most often, I would say, is that embarrassment is a really big one, and that would be because maybe their sibling has some behavioral concerns, and so when they're out in public or when they're hanging out with their friends, their siblings are having a meltdown or they're screaming or they're doing something that just really causes a lot of public attention, and then of course the sibling gets really embarrassed, and so then actually that turns around and ends up being resentment as well. Other impacts can be things like pressure to achieve. So because the sibling that does not have a disability sees that their parents can often be stressed or worried or really busy with a sibling with a disability, they might feel that they have to overachieve, do everything perfect, they can't make mistakes, they really have to make their parents proud. And part of this can also be that they feel like they're not getting enough attention, so maybe if they are perfect and they are excelling and they're doing really wonderful things, that maybe their parents would give them more attention. Another thing that I have witnessed and is in the research as well is that some siblings can become extra empathetic and overly caring, and that's just because they feel that they have to be there to support their sibling and really give them all that they need to do. I would say this is kind of the part that I fell into, which was being that overly empathetic and caring person and really becoming like a caretaker to my brother just because I felt like he needed someone to look out for him. So oftentimes growing up I would hear from people, oh my gosh, you're so mature for your age. And so now kind of looking back at that, I think about that and I think, you know, where could there have been more balance? Where could I have had more fun and then also been that caring, supportive older sister? And you know, I think I did a pretty good job of it, but I think that's something that parents have to really watch out for with some of their kids, is making sure that the kid without the disability also gets to have a lot of fun, have their own life, their own dreams, their own goals. It is important to know that whatever you are feeling, it's okay and it's normal. There is no one size fits all for being a sib to someone with a disability, and it's really okay to feel however you are feeling. I also think it's really great if you don't face this alone and you talk to other people, because there are thousands and thousands and thousands of people all over the world that are also siblings that are waiting to talk to you about all the good times and the bad times, the confusing times, and answer your questions. And I just think everyone should be reaching out to talk to other sibs.